Welcome to Land Speed Legends, a podcast talking to the men, the women, the legends that make land speed racing great. Discover the stories of these ordinary people whose passion for land speed racing has made them legendary. And now, here's your host, the Bonneville Belle, the High Boy Honey, the Salt Princess, Allison Volk Dean.
Okay. So today with me, I have the legendary Donny Cummins, and I appreciate you coming. I needed a California person, even though you're not technically California anymore.
Right.
It does me a favor for you to be here to make the long drive from Boise to come talk to me. I appreciate it. And you're not just here for me. You're here for Mike's celebration of life.
I'm in town for Mike's Nesh's memorial.
Yeah. So that's good. Yeah, it'll be awesome. And we are excited to hear from you. And I thought what was so cool about your story is that it just started way before you were born. So why don't you go ahead and just start telling us about how it started?
I guess you can say it started in the Korean War, even though I wasn't born to 1981. But my grandfather, Don Cummins, was going to get drafted to the Army. Well, back then, from what I was told, you're going to get drafted in the Army, you're in the front line. So he up enlisted into the Navy before he got drafted. And that's kind of fate, because that's where he met Fred Larson in the Navy. And they become best friends and grew a bond that was inseparable until they passed away. And they campaigned and partnered up in the 50s, mid-50s, ran a modified roadster, rear engine modified roadster, in what they bought from Ack Miller. And what they did, unfortunately, back then is they ended up crashing in 1957 and transitioned into a front engine modified. And then eventually in 66, they put together the Streamliner that everyone kind of very familiar with, and the 115 Streamliner.
Yeah, and it was the Larson
and Cummins Streamliner.
Yeah,
yes.
That was. It was very... It's very well known out there.
Yeah. And my grandfather got in the club in 1969 at 289 miles an hour in that. And that basically started my path. My dad Bob Cummins grew up into land speed racing as well as I did when I was born. And so we progressed until, mid 80s. And that was the first time I went on the dirt on El Mirage, and 1985 was my first year on the Salt.
Yeah.
And growing up as a kid on the Salt, like as well as you were,
very familiar.
Very fond memories of racing my Hot Wheels on the Salt and doing kid things, and my first beer, at the young age on the Salt.
21.
No, unfortunately not. And then as I got older, and Fred and my grandfather gave me more responsibilities on the car. And then I was in high school. I was wrenching on the car with Fred and my grandfather and other crew guys. And then we ran that car to last year in 2000. And that was a sad year, because we knew it was going to be the last year for that car. And I was so young and just getting started, and they were showing me the ropes, and Fred was 78. And it was to the point where, he couldn't do much anymore. And as we got retired.
Where is that car now?
NHRA Motorsports Museum.
Oh, it is the museum.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's what I thought. Yeah. Now I can picture it now that I'm seeing it. So growing up, how old were you when they retired that car? What did that mean?
1920, something right around that time, because I was just out of high school. I graduated in 99, so I was probably 18.
Yeah.
18, 19.
Well, and then what kind of things did you do on that car prior? I mean, before what kind of responsibilities did they give you?
As most probably kids progress, hey, hand me the wrench to, take off the body panels and put air in the tires to, take valve covers off, adjust the valve, you start doing more.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think it's good for people to hear that, like what their kids can, do to help with the car, or even the involvement of just, people who know stuff and people who don't know stuff type thing. I think that's good to to hear.
You bet.
To hear him wrenching on it. But you were super involved, and I remember I'm a couple years. I think I'm probably 3 years older than you, but
not by much.
Yeah. But I remember you always being around and like taking pictures of everything.
Yeah.
Like you could tell this.
That's true.
You are passionate
Actually,
for
you
this.
remind me of that. I totally forgot. So, yeah, and a lot of my younger years, I had a camera, and that stemmed from my grandfather. Actually, he was a picture taker. All the photos you see in the early years of the Streamliner were my grandfather.
Yeah,
and I just kind of adopted that, and started taking photos and pictures. And I still have a lot of that to this day. I need to dig them out.
You should, because you took a lot. I mean, I remember you always had a camera in your...
I forgot, yeah. Gosh.
That's what I remember about you, being
That's
younger.
So funny.
Yeah. He's coming around taking pictures. So from there, your grandfather passes away. What year does he pass away?
2001.
2001.
Right after the 9/11.
Okay, so right after they... retired. Well, basically a year after they retired that. So we got to see that retired, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, we retired it. Moon Eyes made a wonderful offer to buy the car, and they put it in the HRA museum.
That's cool.
So it actually is owned by Moon Eyes today.
Yeah.
Still there at the museum. And it was one of those times where like, oh, I really want to go racing. I want to be involved with something. And Fred took me under his wing when my grandfather passed. And Fred was, if anybody knows Fred was a racer at heart, and he understood.
Mm-hmm.
And I would take him to the lakes a lot. Not that he couldn't drive himself, but I would always hang out with him, and we would do stuff together. And he'd become my grandfather, basically. And 2002, we come across this Roadster, and this Roadster is significant to my history because in the mid 80s, one of our crew guys bought this Roadster in the late 70s, early 80s, and rebuilt it and started running it at Bonneville in the mid 80s. His name is Greg Vittage. It was a gray 29 Roadster, and my grandfather and Fred helped him put it together, and with the number of 511. Mm-hmm. And he ran that till about the early 90s. And then he sold it to Butch Carlton. Mm-hmm. And Butch ran it for a few years and then ended up selling it to Dave Davison. So we were at El Mirage, I forget when, probably the first meet in 2002. And Fred walked up to Dave and introduced himself and started talking and said, "Hey, would you mind taking this kid on? He's really eager. He wants to continue racing." And, we retired a Streamliner and we have nowhere for him to go.
Can you take him? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, basically. And so Dave Davison and John Beck and then Al Simon at the time graciously took me on. And started with, hey, take the wheel covers off and put air in the tires, retort the wheels, just the grunt work, and progressed. And a year later, we were where were we? We were at Bonneville, and they knew I wanted to drive, mm-hmm. and my whole goal was always to go 200 miles an hour, get in the 2 Club. Mm-hmm. I mean, my grandfather was in it, Fred Larson was in it in the 3 chapter, and so, I mean, as a kid, that's all you wanted. I remember as a kid, always taking the program and looking through all the membership photos. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's how I grew up on the salt, and looking at Bob Summers, Al Tig, mm-hmm. My grandfather and Fred, and like, I want to be there. I'd do it one day. Well,
and really quick, before you go on for the story, your first memory, you were telling me about your first memory of the salt, or your first, your memory, not of the salt flats, your first memories are of race, or of land speed racing.
So 4 years old, it was the first year on the salt for me, 1985. And I can't remember crap about 4 years old or what I did, but I can tell you exactly what I did at Bonneville that year.
That's crazy.
I remember playing with the Hot Wheels. I remember swimming at the hotel, and those memories are still there.
Sitting on Alex's lap, you said, like, just...
and one of the greatest things I've remembered, and I've talked to Al about this recently, but he would Fred would always like to run in the later afternoon. So Al would run, and my dad would take me down to the 5 Mile to watch Al come through. And we all know when Al comes through, everyone stops and watches. It was an incredible sight and to hear that. And so we would go down and meet Al at the top end, and then he would put me on his lap. And as we all know, Al would always push back to the pits. And I got to ride in his lap and Betsy all the way back from the top end to the
awesome.
pits. As a young kid, I'd never forgotten that.
Yeah.
I don't know if Al remembers it. I've asked him about it, and I don't think he remembered. But
you do.
Yeah, I remember it extensively. It was like to the T.
Yeah. So it obviously influenced you.
Oh, yeah. It screwed me for life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cost you a lot of money.
Oh, yeah. And marriage.
Yeah. A few other things. You were talking about growing up. That just brought me back there because you were talking about like just looking through the book and seeing LT and growing up. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how long were you with Dave and John before you how long were you working on that car? How old were you?
Let's see. I was probably 21 years old when I first met up with Dave and John.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then how long, and it sounds like you're about ready to get a ride in this car is what it sounds like.
Well, they too, when I started with them, the ultimate goal was to drive and get in the 2 club.
Yeah.
And at the time, John wasn't in the club yet, either on the dirt and Bonneville. And that year in 2002 was my first year with them. And our goal was to get John in the Dirty 2 Club. So we worked all year. We busted our butt. And we were top 5, I think, at El Mirage that year with the 811 Roadster, which was the original Roadster that was part of our camp in mid-'80s under Greg Vittich. And so it was really cool, surreal that came full circle.
Very cool.
And be a re-part of that car. Older and now really get to work on it. And at the last meet in November, we got John in the club at like 203. And
what class were you running?
It was D-blown gas roadster.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was, just starting out with the new team and setting records every meet and finishing top 5 and get John a 2 club. I mean, that was an amazing first year. And we did good, and we've been lucky. We've had a lot of great years. We've had some bad years, and had some tragedy here and there. But it's been good. So
you got John in the Dirty 2.
Yep.
And then what happens after that?
So they know I was hungry, and so we started off 2003 with a record. Dave went down at El Mirage. We went pretty good. We went 220 something and set the Sea Fuel record. And at that time, we were battling with Wilson and Waters, and every other meet we're trading records. It seemed like it was pretty intense. It was cool. And we get to Bonneville, and we were trying to get John in the 2 club, and it just wasn't happening. We kept hurting valves, and no matter what we could do, we made multiple passes. I think the record was like 220, 230 something, and we were mid 250, 225, somewhere close. We were knocking on the door, but we kept hurting it. So finally we just kind of said, okay, it's not going to happen. And Dave and John turned to me and said, do you want to do your rookie pass? And I was like, yeah.
Hell yeah, I do.
And then
that's awesome.
Sheer fear, but but this is what I waited for my whole life. And so I was like, oh, this is incredible. So then the circus started.
But this is at Bonneville. Sorry.
This is at Bonneville Speed Week, yeah.
This is at Speed Week?
Yeah.
What year?
2003. It was my first pass ever.
Okay, sorry. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. And so we were running a small block Chevy on 94%, 95% nitro at the time. And John told me, he goes, look, I don't know how to detune the motor. I can pull some nitro out of it, but I can't go too much otherwise things because it'll be a blubbering pig and not going to run worth the shit. And so he basically, I think he detuned it to like, I don't know, like 85% or something like that. And it's like, all right, kid, you're just going to have to learn this. This is trial or by fire, I guess. So the day before run, and Dave's a lot bigger guy than I am. And he said, all right, here's your fire suit. And of course, it's a blanket. I mean, this thing is huge. And they're fitting me in the car. Nothing fits. They stuff me with pillows and they're laughing and cracking up the whole time.
Like, I'm really scared here.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, this
nervous.
is great confidence builder. They're laughing. They're like, I mean, there's no joke. I think John was on the floor laughing because they had me so puffed up with pillows and trying to make the seatbelts work. And today's standards, well, back then, definitely unsafe, but you do what you need to do to go make a pass. And so we get up there and next day, and I'm excited but nervous, and I've never really held a clutch in the car before my whole entire life, and so I'm sitting in the car, we're on the starting line, I know the routine. We went over it multiple times, plus I've been already with the team for a while. So I go pushing the clutch, you're like, oh crap, I can't hold it. Didn't realize this was going to be a problem. And
didn't foresee this.
And I'm like, I'm probably a buck 20, 30 at that time. So I'm very I don't have a lot of muscle on me. And I'm like, I got my knee locked. I am shaking. My leg is shaking. And they fired it up and we got it on nitro and they got to put the hood scoop on. I'm like, hurry up. And I can't hold it. And my foot slipped and it engaged the clutch and went forward and almost ran over John. I mean, it was a bump.
Yeah, just a
but
lurch.
the look on his face was like, I'm going to kill you. But, and then I left the starting line. And then, that day prior, Dave told me, okay, you need to stick it at this RPM. Don't go over this RPM. Did the gear calculation and everything. I said, all right, cool, no problem. And well, as anybody's driven a nitro motor, you crack the throttle and it just accelerates. It accelerates hard. And I couldn't keep it. And it would surpass the throttle. I mean, the
RPM.
The RPM that he asked.
Yeah.
And I couldn't keep it through there. And Bill Taylor was my starter for that day for the rookie run. And so I think the 2 mile speed was like 175 or something.
Yeah.
And we looked at the race back data later and I was like about 200 miles an hour in my first pass. And yeah, it was a mess.
Oh my goodness.
It was quite the mess. And, and
get you in a lot of trouble.
I had, I was so stuffed in there with cushions and stuff. My head was against the roll cage. And I vividly remember going through the 2 mile marker and the 2 was a 22. And it was shaking so bad, and I'm trying to keep my head off the cage, and it was a mess for the first run, but I did it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh crap, time slips really bad. It was like I think the final mile was like 170 or something. I'm like, oh, I'm in trouble. So I went back up to Bill Taylor, and I'm expecting the worst, and like, I'm going to get in trouble. And he looked at me and he said, you know what? I heard you pedal that thing all the way through there. He says, I think you did what you could do.
Yeah.
And it was cool. So,
yeah. And you're like, oh.
That was my first pass in an injected nitro 29
sounds
roadster.
Like a pretty intense pass. Like usually they're like, oh, you can warm up on something a little bit less intense. But yeah.
But I'm glad I did. In retrospect, I probably wouldn't want anything less.
Yeah.
I wanted the fire to start with.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is that same speed week. Is that all you do that speed week, or do you keep?
Yeah, I think we threw another crew member in the car too at the end of the week too, just to get us all laps and stuff. Dave's always been great about that, trying to give other team members. He understands that everyone comes out here at their own time and they bust their ass and they really try hard.
That's probably why he's successul at all of it, because you understand that.
He's a wonderful guy.
Yeah.
So, and he's always in the corner, he's not really outspoken.
No.
But if you get to know him, Oh,
well, let me just tell you a quick story. Really quick on this side note is that Dave, I remember he is very quiet and kind of just like humble. He came to the 2 club banquet to get his 3 club hat, his 3 chapter hat, excuse me, and I think it was like he had come and it was really crowded, and he's like, oh, maybe there's not room for you. And I was like, yeah, you're the first roadster to go 300 miles an hour. I think we can make a little bit of room for you to get your blue hat. Like, he was just like, well, I guess, maybe there's not room. And I was like, oh yeah, no, there'll be room. We'll bring out another table.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's just the kind of guy he is.
Yeah.
Though. Like, just super
absolutely.
chill and nice. Yeah. Dave's great.
Oh yeah, he's a good dude.
Yeah. So you guys, you got some other crew members in, and then what happens after that?
Well, then that kind of started everything. And then so go back to El Mirage, and I still had a relicense for my 150 pass, and started driving every year since then. And we progressed with the 811 at the time. We had small block Chevys, wedge head motors, and then we partnered with Chet Herbert. And he had some really radical Hemi designed heads for a small block. We started running that and C Fuel, and we started to really be successful with it. And I was continuing a license on that, and got a lesson in driving on the dirt and a roadster, and using both sides of the track at 200 miles an hour. That was my first really hang on.
So what happened?
I was going up for my 200 mile an hour license, and this is in the 811 on fuel, like the full tune up. And I just remember cooking through there about mid track, and she just started darting left and right, and just made a hard move to the left and hanging on, and ended up getting it, down through there. But that was my first lesson of driving a roadster on the dirt.
Yeah. Was that your first time running on the dirt? Or
No. I think I did a 175,
but that
the prior year, and then this was the 175 to 200, and so
you're like, this is different.
You better be on your toes. I really got a lesson.
Yeah,
El Mirage really teaches you a lot. Because I'm not taking anything away from Bonneville.
No.
I love it to death. And Bonneville's a crazy deal, because I had my most wild ride at Bonneville, actually, in the 911. But El Mirage taught you, in my opinion, taught me how to be a better driver.
Yeah.
So when I go to Bonneville, with your speeds are faster, obviously, to be able to hopefully harness it better.
Yeah. So why do you think that is? What is, I like I said, I've never been out there, so I don't know.
You accelerate fast at El Mirage. It happens very quick. Your finish line, like in the 911, it's weird. Dave and I joke about driving the 911. Now, obviously, he's got 100 passes onto my few, but it feels like when you leave the line at El Mirage in the 911, you dump the clutch out and you're ready at the finish line. It happens so quick. It's crazy. So you're learning to rely on your natural ability. And I'm not trying to be pompous or anything, but that's a lot of what this driving is, because if you think it's already too late, you're offside the course, you're already, screwed up.
Yeah.
So you're a lot of relying on your natural ability and your subconscious and to make the corrections. If you're not trying to correct before the car's moving over there, your instincts, there you go. You're already too late.
Yeah.
And El Mirage is worse sometimes. I shouldn't say that's worse, but at the end of the day, or during the day, the course goes away really quick. Bonneville, we don't change courses until every couple of days. At El Mirage, that course is already starting to get chewed up by midday, or even early morning, or excuse me, mid-morning. So you're, John and I always say, you're racing on strawberry fields. It's a bunch of dirt marbles. So you learn real quick. Watch out for different colored dirt. Try to navigate the car.
Interesting.
And you're coming up really fast in the 911. You see some really bad chewed up spots. You're already quarter mile away or more, trying to push the car away from that, because you hit that and you can just go up in the wheel spin.
Yeah. Huh. That's interesting. Yeah, that sounds intense. I mean, I think El Mirage people who are in the El Mirage 2 Club, it's just as impressive as Bonneville, because you're doing it in that short amount of time, and it's obviously even more so now. I appreciate it, because it's knowing all that.
It's a lot of work. Some people say it's harder to get in El Mirage. I think it goes both ways. There's some records at Bonneville are extremely hard, and I think El Mirage is a little bit harder as a driver to get in.
Yeah.
It happens so quick.
Yeah.
You have to accelerate so hard.
But that's the first club that you got in.
Yeah.
Is the El Mirage. So you had your dangerous experience there. And then, so is that the year that you got in the club?
No. So a few years later, Dave got this idea that he wanted to get John and I in a club, and we're still running the 811, and we're still shooting for the Seafield Roadster record at Bonneville. And so that was his goal. He wanted to set that. So he got this idea of, so we're going to build a street roadster. And he literally, out of kindness of his heart, built this 32 street roadster. The shop up there, our race shop, did this in 28 days, believe it or not.
He built the race car in 28 days.
28 days, 2006.
Wow.
And it was kind of like this, once he got this idea, he just put it in motion. And there's a lot of people that really helped. And so anyways, we got it together, 2006, first year out. And Jimmy Shine is out there running on the same record.
What is that record? I remember this year.
D-blown gas street roadster.
So is it the same?
2006.
Okay, D-blown. Okay.
Yeah. So they built this for John and I to get in the club. And so John, literally it went off the jig onto tires and rolled into the trailer to make Bonneville. We did not even push it. I mean, we didn't know if this thing steered straight or anything. and so we get up there and John's going to take the first pass, and so we push him off, and of course, this is what we always do. John gets on it as hard as he can, and he's accelerating, and it's not working. The car's going to the left, and it can't steer it, and it would not go straight. And well, he's off on the horizon. I can't see anything. I pushed him off, and I hear over the loudspeaker. It gets back. We had 2 courses going, maybe 3 courses going at that time. And I got confused, and I heard a 214, and the record at the time was like below 200s or something. So I'm like, oh my God, first pass, we're qualified. John's going to get in the club, and I'm screaming, I'm yelling. And I went across the return road, not because we're on course 2, I believe. And not even paying attention, and I'm scaring everyone in the push truck. I'm jumping, exciting. And then come to find out it wasn't our time. And John actually darted over to almost course 1 because he couldn't control it. Oh. Anyways, finally we picked him up, and we're like, we got a problem.
Yeah.
So we tried it again, and same thing, hard left, and couldn't drive it. So we parked it and run the 811. Yeah. So we took it back, Street Roadster, and we worked with Dave Tuttle. It's a long time fabricator, chassis guy, and Bonneville enthusiast. And we straightened up a lot of the steering. There's a lot of geometry issues that, built the car in 28 days. And we missed. And so we came back out the next year. We're at El Mirage, and they said, John was already in the club, and they said, all right, Donnie, it's your turn. We're going to try to get you in the club. And so for first meet was May, and I'm excited and eager and want to go as fast as I can. And of course, I think I'm in a drag race. So I floor it and spin the tire all the way through. And it was a ridiculous run, and went 92. We got the record, but you want the 2 clubs. So that's like, dang it. And then we come back next meet in June, and I just calmed down, just barely progressed the throttle all the way through, and went through at 200.8 or something, and got in the 2 club at El Mirage in 2007.
Nice.
So I was like, okay. So not being crazy hopped up, and just be
kind of got the jitters out of you a little bit. Just getting there. So
be a little bit more calm and relaxed, and just kind of just not think about it. Just get it down through there, and it was actually faster than trying to step on the throttle.
Yeah.
So that got me into the club, and then we go to Bonneville, and they said, all right, Donnie, you're up first, and then we're going to put John in and try to get us both in the club. And so that's where the chaos started, I guess. It was fun. So it took me a couple passes to kind of get it down through there. The first pass, I was a turnout. I wasn't driving the car very well, and John, he really wanted me to get in the club, so he made some wholesale tune-up changes that ultimately probably wasn't in the best favor, and it wasn't his fault. He was just because I was the no drive son of a gun and couldn't get it down through there. So I was having a hard time leaving the push truck and the way we had to run that combination. And so we made some tune-up changes to try to help me, and instead of me just learning how to drive the car, and get down to the 2.5, and she's nosed over. She's driving off the course. I'm full rudder trying to bring her back, and then we get to the finish line, and then it bangs the blower, it blows the body panels off the car, and I qualify.
Of course.
Dang it. So we rush it back to the impound because we're going to do what we can do here because I'm qualified on a hat, you know, and so we don't quit. That's one thing about our team. We don't quit until we have to. It's obvious. And so we're thrashing. We had people over there I don't even know to this day. I remember beating on body panels, trying to put her back together. John is working on the motor with and Paul Bowman, who is another. No, I'll get into him in a second. But without that guy right there, our team probably wouldn't be successful.
Who was it?
Paul Bowman.
Okay.
He's kind of our workhorse.
Okay.
He puts everything together behind the scenes and really works his butt off.
Yeah.
I'll get to him in here in a little bit. But so we were busting our butt, and finally we got her all back together. I mean, it was a mess, but I don't care about being pretty at this point. I just want to get my red hat. And John told me, he goes, well, we're going to fire up here. As long as it's not gushing water out the exhaust, we're going to send you.
Yeah.
And fired up, and I was scared. I'm sitting in the car. I'm like, oh my God. And I'm yelling out of the car, is the water coming out of the exhaust? Because that's what John told me. So that's all I'm focused on. I don't even know the damn thing has oil pressure. I'm just like, is there water coming out? Because I want my return run. And we're good. So we pushed up and went down, and I made the return run like at 2:10, and at that time Jimmy Shine held the record like at 2:06 or 7 or something like that, and I averaged like 2:08, and so I got in the 2 club, and it was a thrash. I mean, we worked hard. We took that 4 hours to the max, to make it happen.
That's a good one though. That's like a good
that was
good
fun.
2 club story there.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And the fact that you're just like, there's people that I don't even know help me. It reminds me of when you said that, like the world's fastest Indian, like when people are like, what is like, I'm like, that is literally how it is out there. Like people will just, it just in that.
Some of the guys that I don't even know were like pounding out body panels. I don't even know where they came from, and there were some of them were acquaintances of ours and stuff, but that's the beauty part about Bonneville. Bonneville brings people together like no other.
I agree. Yeah, it's nice. So, well, that's cool. So that got you your red hat. And what year was that?
2007.
2007. That's right.
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember that year. Like I was telling you, I remember going down there, and my dad's like, let's go get Donnie his hat. And you were just so excited. Like, people don't know this, but I mean, and people who know Donnie know, but you're just thrilled. You are so happy to like just be a part. I mean, even now, like you are like established, land speed racer type person in the land speed community. And you're just like thrilled to be there. You're just thrilled to like, I remember how happy you were to get that hat. It's just awesome.
It was bittersweet though.
Yeah. Tell me this. Yeah.
So your whole life as a childhood, you dreamed of being in a 2 club and having your picture next to, your grandfather in that same Bonneville Speedway program. And then you go do it and you're like, oh shit. I've just accomplished my lifelong dream, and I'm like 25 or
what do I do now?
26 or something. And like, and so it was a little bit of an emptiness. You're excited that you got in the club, you accomplished your goal, but at the same time, it was a little bit of a letdown. Not to sound bad or anyway, but
we were saying this though. It's like finishing a good book. Like you were just like, oh, now what do I do? Like.
And this is me personally, because we were so actively trying to set C Fuel record in the Roadster and trying, at that point we still haven't had John in the club. So we still had goals and which keeps you going as a racer. Right. But for me personally, I was a little bummed, and it's what you experience is like, okay, well, once you set your goals, you're out of the seat, and then now somebody else is going to take over. And by all means, John and a couple other guys at the time we had lined up, and And it was funny because on my return run, I remember going down there, and we would only run that car at a 3 mile, and about 2.5 mile, we lost oil pressure, and you know, and the oil lights coming on, and I'm not going to lift because it's a red hat.
Yeah.
And I could see the finish line, and we made it through. But the next pass out, you know, John tried to run. It was wounded.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can get him into the club. So it took a couple years to get John in the club.
He got there. He got there.
Yep.
Yeah. He was there.
2009.
So, yeah. So that's, I mean, I know what you mean. Like, you feel bad, because I felt bad because I knew there was people behind me in line. And so when things went wrong when I was driving, I was like, oh shoot, like, should I just let the next person cut? You know what I mean? Like, I kind of I don't know how to explain it, but you feel bad when something doesn't go the other driver's way as well.
In a way, I mean, the only one I really cared about, that sounds bad. I really cared about John getting a club too.
Yes.
And I don't know why they put me first, because if they put John first, he would obviously have been in the club.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was very grateful for that.
Yeah.
But it all worked out in the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was fun. I remember John getting in the club too. So that was awesome. It was nice to see him get in. Well, okay. So you were saying, I did not mean to interrupt you, that you were kind of like, it was a letdown, and you're not a letdown. You're like, now what? So what's your now what?
Well, always, you know, wanted to be like Fred Larson, you know, and Altig, and getting a 300 mile an hour chapter. And so I always had envisioned building a 300 mile an hour car. So that's kind of where that idea really started to spark with me. So right after that, in the late 2000s, I was really thinking about, okay, what would I do? What would I do? I'm a Roadster guy. I'm a Streamliner guy. Streamliners, well, you build a Streamliner today's day and age, and I only knew Nitro now because that's what I've been involved with now. And like, you're going to have to go 400 miles an hour. Like, oh, I don't think I have the budget for that. or
mentally ready for that.
Yeah. It's like, you know, let's not get too cocky here. So I said, well, let's either I'm going to build a Lakester or I'm going to build a modified Roadster. And as a little kid in the late 80s, the one car other than Altics that stood out to me was a Jim Howell's 888 modified Roadster. That thing to me was the most gnarly looking, colorful looking car on the Salt in the late 80s. I remember reading about it in Hot Rod magazine. And so it always stuck with me as a little kid in the late 80s. And then, so fast forward to 2013, 14, I said, screw it, I'm going to start. I ended up buying a 27 body from Steve Davies and started gathering metal material. I was able to acquire a wonderful sponsor by the name of Ron Dean. He sponsored me. I think you may know him. He sponsored me all the metal to build the chassis for the new modified Roadster that which will be labeled 511.
That's awesome.
And he was gracious to get, if it wasn't for Ron, I mean, there's a lot to thank him for. I probably wouldn't have been as far as I have been now, because he, not only did he sponsor me a lot of the material, but he pushed me.
Yeah.
At the time, he said, you just got to keep going. Yeah. You know, and so end of the year, every year, you know, for a few years, we would meet up at a friend's house in Northern California with Paul Bowman and myself and Brent Everett. And we would call it the end of the year racer party. And the gentleman that would go attend it, his name is Craig Hoffman from the legendary Hoffman-Markley family. And we all know they're legendary for their fabrication skills and the beautiful streamliners and belly tanks and modified roadsters they built over the years. And so I'm talking to him, and I said, Craig, I don't have a lot of money, but this is kind of what I'm thinking. And he goes, let's do it. I said, wow, okay, shoot, it can happen. So we start on this thing, and I just got through a divorce, and I just met another girl, and is my current wife to this day, and she was incredibly supportive, Krista.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started on the modified. And Craig spent many years. I should have paid him 500 times more than that I paid him, because what he cranked out with our collaboration on the design was amazing. And I built it off of what I learned from the 911 and what remembering Jim Howell's modified was. And we kind of sat down and Craig just ran to the moon and took whatever idea I had and just made it 15 times better.
Yeah. So that did he just like design it and then?
Well, we talked about it and he would send me photos and then we actually worked with Tom Brooklyn a little bit. And so Craig did a lot of the design. He did a lot of the figuring out, which was, it was incredible. The guy is super talented and again, underpaid. I wish. But he come up with this design and we collaborated on, and then we would consult with Tom Brooklyn, and Tom Brooklyn said, change this. I think Craig had to cut the roll cage off the car like 3 times because, it's at first point, Tom's like, no, too high.
Tom, like,
and oh, no, it's still too high. And then, and then one time we cut it off because I said, no, it's too low. I can't see over the tonneau cover, and so. But Tom's been consulting on it, and he's been a wealth of knowledge, and I feel a lot safer. So we're designing the car to go about 350. If I ever get there, who knows? But at least I know I've 350
at Bonneville.
Yeah, 350 at Bonneville.
But how fast do you want to go at El Mirage?
So El Mirage is
big dreams.
Secretly, my big goal right now with the modified is to go 300 El Mirage.
Yeah, it's not so secret anymore.
No. I mean, my guys know.
Yeah.
But Pete Prentice holds the fastest pass at 312. Arlie's going to probably take it here in the next few years. He's getting that streamliner dialed in. Yeah. But 3 chapter in El Mirage that's
awesome.
Going to be incredible.
Yeah, that would be incredible. What color is their hat in the 3 chapter at El Mirage? I don't feel like I've ever seen one.
I actually don't know. So it's a Merlot for the two club.
I've seen plenty. Yeah. I mean, not plenty, but I've seen those. I just don't know what the 3 chapter looks like.
Yeah. Huh. I don't know. I'll have to ask. I'll have to look at Freddie's when I see him next week.
Yeah.
And Pete's.
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, and then of course you want to do 3 chapter at Bonneville.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, that's a given. Yeah. I mean, and I think after that happens, then I want to pay it forward and let other people drive and not, when you have kids and stuff now, things are put in a different perspective.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably, I mean, not, I don't plan on stop driving. It's just like, okay, I really don't need to go for that 300 mile an hour, 350 mile an hour.
Right.
But, maybe the 307 mile an hour. Okay.
I know what you mean, because it's like, that sounds like okay, but like 350, that's getting fast.
And a modified. It's pretty sketchy.
For sure, in a modified. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think 300 in modified sounds crazy, but.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah, it does sound exciting. Sounds like a handful. So what class is that you're in? What is the full class like? Well,
to me, right before Jim Howell passed away, he and I were talking a little bit here and there, and he saw the car being built, and he laughed at me. He says, "You should have just saved your money and just and spent it on building a motor, and we could just took my old car out." But he understood where I was coming from, and I wanted to have my own car. And he said, "It's the biggest honor for you to build a car like mine." Yeah. And it really, so he and I were not close, but become friends over the years. Yeah. And so my goal really is to run the A class. And his record still stands to this day from the early 90s at 307.555.
Okay, so you're going after his record.
I think I would be satisfied, and I think he would be too.
Oh, yeah.
On our conversations if I took his record.
Yeah.
And if somebody else gets it before I do, hats off to them, because records
Are meant to be broken.
They're meant to be broken. But if I had one goal at Bonneville, that would be to take his record.
Okay. So it's an A, what, modified?
A blown fuel modified roadster, which is the motors in the front. I like to see where my money's going.
Yeah. That's fast. That's a fast class. Yeah. So do you have the motor?
Unfortunately not.
He's still working on it.
No. Well, let's just say, partnering with Dave and John on my new project, we were going to use a lot of motors from the 911. So we had an A motor, we had a B motor and a C motor. Well, we sacrificed the A motor to build a double A motor. And that's what our last class we were running here as we wind down the 911 is try to get Dave the A11. Oh, excuse me, the double A record at Bonneville. That's the one record.
With the 911.
With the 911.
Get Dave the double A.
So we don't have an A motor anymore.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Okay.
But I've been collecting parts over the years, and who knows, maybe we'll put something together. But we have a C motor and a B motor, and the B motor is basically complete. And so that's probably where we're going to start with is the B motor.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, because it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I love that. And that's kind of where you're at is brings us to the present.
Yeah.
Any other amazing stories from your youth that you remember? Or from just going through?
Well,
or anything you want to add?
Not to be pompous or anything, but I think in my land speed, racing for years, I think probably the most thing that stands out the most is being the first roadster to go 300.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And
heck yeah. I remember I was in Hawaii when that happened. I was like, I'm not there at that meet. I was in stupid Hawaii.
Yeah. It was one of the greatest accomplishments. We worked really, really hard on it. And I mean, it stems back to Les Leggett. Les Leggett and his crew did a wonderful job building the car and the chassis. And then we partnered with Les in 2009 was the first year. And Dave took the car and, changed it around and did a lot of stuff that would suited him and at the time. And so we ran and, there was potential. We were just fighting problems. And eventually, 2010, we decided to just go our own ways. And that speed week, I think the record was Dwayne McKinney's on A. We were running A, and it was 280 or 279, and we ended up setting the record a 281 or something. And we were just kind of disappointed because we weren't going 300, and and
280 is far from 300.
Yeah. And let me step back for a second. When we went on our own, we'd never run a blown field Chrysler before, so we really had some great help. We worked with Freddie Danzenfelder and Tony Waters. They gave us a baseline. It's okay, all right. So we were running it. We were trying to figure it out, and getting instruction from Freddie Danzenfelder, legendary guy. I mean, John and I call him John Wayne. Just the way he walks, and it's just it's incredible.
That's funny. That's awesome.
But so anyways, we spent a lot of time that speed week and went through a lot of nitro and just trying to figure out the tune-up. And so we go to World Finals that year, to this 2010, and we go down to 283. We're just beating our head against the wall. What are we doing? So John goes, I know what we could do. So let's add more nitro.
Yeah, that's always the answer.
Yeah. And we threw a ton of nitro at this thing, and all of a sudden we went down at 297.
You're
at the 3 mile, and we're oh, we got something. So we sat back and we're going through the tune-up, and I said, let's add 3% more, and then, we did it. And then next thing we know, we went 304 at 3 mile, and we did it, and it was surreal. So
that is unreal.
I think that right there was probably one of the most thing that stands out in my whole career. I mean, the 2 Club obviously was a lifelong goal, but doing that meant something.
It was just the first of something, which is just, we love our little, like, we're the only ones or the only, you know, but that was truly the first roadster that went 300.
Yeah, exactly. And 300. And we've ran 300 a few more times. And then obviously Doug Robinson and Eddie Marlin, they killed it a couple years ago, went 311, and they did really good. They did awesome.
Yeah.
We've since then, you know, changed our program a little bit. We've added front suspension. 911 really struggles around mid 300s. 305 to 308. It's a handful. So we've made some suspension changes or chassis changes to add a suspension, trying to get it settled down. And hopefully this year, which is maybe one of our last years with the car, hopefully we can go and either reclaim the world's fastest roadster, or at least we would be satisfied if we just take AA record.
Yeah.
And,
nice.
Yep.
Oh, I hope that happens. I wish you guys the best. So you're just still crewing with the 911 and with Dave's and for now.
Yep.
When do you expect your modified roadster to be out of
I say every year it'll be next year.
Okay.
But life gets in the way. I've got a wonderful family and wonderful wife, Krista, and Landon, Liam, and Ashlyn as our kids. And I took on 2 stepsons. We got married and love every minute of it.
And you're in the thick of it right now, like you're in the busy part.
He just got accepted in the All-Stars.
Yeah.
So we're heavy into that with baseball. And so it's taken a lot of resources. But the end goal is still hopefully to have the modified out next year.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Well, I hope that happens for you.
Thank you.
And you I wish you the best on all of your racing endeavors. Sure. I know you'll be out there no matter what.
Oh, yeah. No matter.
So, well, good. This has been awesome. I love talking to you and catching up. Like I said, I learn new stuff every time about everybody that I interview, and it's been a pleasure. And we just want to be able to keep on racing, and especially racing at Bonneville. So we ask everyone to go to savethesalt.org and to buy a t-shirt or to donate. Anything, little thing helps. They're getting ready to ramp up some legal things, I think. So maybe they're going to need attorney fees. So let's just go ahead and go donate to them. And just thank you so much for listening. Remember to go to my Instagram, or to like and share this podcast first, and then to go to my Instagram or Facebook page and to like it. And thanks again.
Thanks for listening to Land Speed Legends. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, keep up with the show on Facebook and Instagram under Land Speed Legends. Until next time.